All hot papercraft. Hello. So if you have already defined the parts and can unfold properly, then how can you paint the model in Blender if you want to? Okay. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to do a UV map. A UV map is actually the flattened version of the model, is actually another flattened version of the model, which is not necessarily the same. Actually, it's really never the same as the exported out paper model. Although it's also affected by how do you define the parts with Maxime. So what you do is in this one you have to do separately for each object. Okay, so the wheels are separate objects, so we have to do them separately. So I will go to UV editing here, and then I need to select all. And now you can see that the way this is put up here is very strange because the parts are overlapping. You don't want that. Okay, so then you should go here to Smart UV Project, and here you have several settings. The only setting which is interesting here is this one, is the island margin. So you can set this to say 0.1, and then you will see that this makes spaces between the parts. But this is having too much space. Okay, so maybe something like 0.01 is okay. Then you have a little bit more space between the parts. Otherwise, they will be right next to one another, which is a little bit close. And then you can see here that, of course, these parts actually are a little bit distorted. Yeah. So, yeah, that's one of the disadvantages here, of course. Okay. Then you have this one, and then you have here you have a UV map. Okay. There are other UV maps here which are obviously failed. Okay. So here, this is in this area you have the UV maps. If something is wrong, if later the image comes out wrong in some way, then you have to make sure that you select the correct UV map here. Okay, so then you can go to texture paint, and this is already defined as violet because this is this basically means there is no image. Okay, so now what you have to do, you have to assign an image. You go here to texture slots, and then mode material. Actually, so it's fine to leave it with material. Okay, with single image there's some other stuff which doesn't work properly when you export out, because for the paper model you need to have it as a material. Then you choose here, the first one will be base color. Okay, base color, and then here you can select the base color. Yeah, so this van is silver. Yeah, so I have grayish. You can make the size bigger, but it's not really, doesn't do anything for the quality. And then this one would be the name, of course, you see. So here you have van texture. Okay, and generate a type blank, of course, and add. Okay, so now you can see that this is gray, and also here's gray. And now you can start painting on it. Yeah, here. Yeah, this is of course a very funny van. And here in the sidebar you have the tools here, which is the screwdriver and the wrench. And then here you have settings for the pencil, for the brush. So this is blend, and this is mix. So there's another one which would be, for example, multiply. And then if you have another color, then it will be, it will be multiplied. This is basically like the settings in Photoshop. See what you can do with them. Actually, it's fine to just use mix. Then here you have the radius. So this is the size of your brush. Okay, so here you have the big one. You can make also a very small one. Yeah, okay. Then the strength. This is interesting if you have an art pad. Okay. Then color picker, I think, should be self-explanatory, right? Then two other things are interesting. Here you have the fall off. Okay, so what the fall off does is, still have the thin one. Let me get a little bit bigger. So the fall off is the fall off is basically the hardness of the brush. Okay, so now we have a fall off which is like a little bit hard. It's the edge is a little bit soft. If you have something, so here you can choose between the existing fall offs. Okay, so for example, this one, you see this one is rather soft. Yeah, this one is also rather soft. It's not just like super soft. Then here, yeah, and then this one, for example, which is the square, this is like super hard, and yeah, it doesn't work so well because it creates pixelated here at the edge. So actually, if you want to have a sharp one, um, something like something that you can also adjust it yourself, right? So custom. So something that is going a little something that is almost squared but not really. Okay, so then you have something. Now this edge is still a little bit hard. So here, okay, like this, something like this. Okay, and another thing which is interesting is the stroke. Yeah, and the stroke is the standard, the preset is space, so this is just painting straight. Then you can have other things like dots, and I don't really know what's the difference actually. What is very useful is here the line. Okay, so for the line, you click, you hold, and then you click, you hold the mouse button, you move over, and then you can draw a line, which can make you draw straight. It's very good for drawing straight lines. Okay, and then another thing that you have is here the curve. And if you find out how to use it, let me know, because this is supposed to be, you can draw a curve like with a Bezier curve. Maybe here instead of no. And I have no idea. Maybe, I guess you have to export it somehow or what. I don't really know. If you find out how it works, let me know. Another thing that you can do now is to set up the image to help you. Okay, so if you want to draw like for example you want to draw the doors on this van, then you can turn on the image, and you need to go back to edit mode for a moment. Okay, so go back to not edit mode, object mode. So you go here, you select this image, and you move this image in front. Okay, you move this image in front, and now you take this image and you reduce the opacity as much as possible so that you can still see the lines clearly, but you can see through. And then of course you will lock this image. Okay, so you will not accidentally look at it. So then you can also do the same one for the image from the front. For the bottom you don't really need it. So move it to the front. Then set down the opacity as much as possible and lock. Okay, go back to texture paint, right? And then you can look at the side here. Then you can switch to okay, so there was no object selected, so we need to select the object, go to texture paint, and now we can look at the side, and we can actually so we pick some blue for the window. Oh, wait. So we actually see the image, but we can draw on the model behind it. Okay, so I can just draw the window. Okay, and then here also. And of course, yeah, drawing like this by hand is a bit difficult, yeah. So it's may not be the best choice, yeah. If you have a art pad, maybe it's a good idea. Then here the how to say, the direction indicator. Direction indicator in the back. Okay, look at the front. In the front, actually the window is not really defined here. And another thing that is tricky, that the color, if you have one color, it's better to stay with that one color, because there is not really any way to pick up the color. Okay, so here, paint the windscreen. Okay, and then I should do this, of course, for the other side. Paint the main lights, main headlights. Maybe some this one, and also I can use the, of course I can use the line tool here. It's the line, make it very thin and black, and then I can use the line to draw the doors and okay, so and here and then I should of course repeat that for the other side, yeah. And this is how I can paint in here. And then if I go back to layout, then I can switch on this view here. So if this shows up, then it should be fine to be exported. Okay. Yeah. And then I can save, and I can export out to paper model. And this time, okay, once again, I set this to 30, of course. I get rid of these two so they don't interfere with my model, with my painting. So then I have here when to paint it. And I need to set this to from materials. Okay. And then export paper model. And let me have a look if it came out. Okay, so again, once again, I don't know where it was saved to. Let me try again. So 1 to 30. From materials, it should be this folder. Oh, it's a folder up one folder. Okay, up one folder. And then paint it. And export paper model. Okay, export. And then go here and check for, and still, here's. Okay, so here's this now the painted model. Okay, yeah, and you have to see if this is for you to actually paint in Blender. Yeah, I think without ArtPad it's pretty difficult. Actually, but what you can do, you can use this as a reference. Okay, so if you have something which goes across parts, then you can draw the lines on here, and then you can, when you export it to Illustrator, then you can know where is the right position. Okay, and of course another thing which is important. Let me find my other USDV. So because there may be some problems, okay? So this one has, I set up the texture map, okay? The next texture map is not correct here. It doesn't really matter, yeah? And here you see the problem if you have the texture map which is overlapping, that, you know, you draw in one place and the image comes out in another place. But anyway, so what I want to show you here is that if you have this one, yeah, and then it may happen that something like this happens. So if I try to export it out, Yeah, I will set the scale right. I will say from materials, and I will say export paper model. And there's this. Okay, so this is an error, and this has something to do with two small parts. Okay, so actually if you scale it up higher, then it will work. Yeah, it's like maybe there's something here in the wheels or in the edge. Okay, so technically there's a way to go around this. Yeah, which would be to delete the small parts, but it's troublesome. Okay, so here I will select all of them. I will select all of the main surfaces. Maybe the rear view mirrors will also work. Let me first try it without them. So I will select all the main surfaces, and then I will have select invert, which selects everything else, and then I delete that. Okay. So now all the small parts are gone. So now actually this should work. Let me try. So export and paper model, and from materials, and 1 to 30, and export, and you see it went through wherever it was put here. Yeah, okay, so now this time it went through. So this is how you if you come across this problem, this is how you can avoid it. Yeah, then of course you will have to go back and keep copy of the model where you don't delete those parts, and then you can export them out separately and put everything together in Illustrator. Okay, and there's one more way to paint a model. For this I will go back to my van. Okay, I will go back to my van, and now I can there's another way. Okay, so if I go to UV editing, I have here, and this is the wrong texture map, as you can see. So here I should choose the correct texture map, so UV map. So now you can see that everything is aligned here. Okay, so now what I can do in UV editing is another thing that's very important. Actually, I forgot, is here that this image you need to save it separately. Okay, so you need to save it separately, and we already define a name for it, so it's the van texture. Okay, then another thing that we can do is we have here in the UV editing, we can save this UV map, because I export UV layout, and we save this as van UV. Okay, and export layout. Okay, export layout, and then we have the van UV. You can open this in Photoshop, and we also need to so this is, you see, they are the parts for the UV. Okay, so then we need to find the van texture, and where is it? Okay, so it's not here. Let me make sure that this is saved. Oh, so pack to memory image. Okay, that's save as. So I'll need to save this as, save as, and then save as image. Okay, so now I should have it here. Okay, so here I have the van texture. Okay, so now I can push this also into Photoshop. And now what I can do is in Photoshop, I take this UV, and it's better to actually flatten it and then copy over, and then you can have it here in exactly the same position, and then you go to the layers and you make this layer to multiply, and you can also lock it if that helps. But so now what you can do is now you can edit these images, you can edit this here. So if you have if you draw the doors here, you can draw the doors a little bit better. Another thing that you can do here is actually to you could bring in an image, yeah, and then you could select here the area where the car is, okay, and copy this over. Copy this over, and then put it to the right size, and yeah, okay, so it needs to be rotated. No. Okay, and then you, maybe it's good to put it behind the UV so you can see better. And then you can put it to here and here. Okay. And then I can also layer duplicate. So layer duplicate layer, and I will do the same. Let's put the same over here, yeah. Okay. Then I can save this as PSD, just to have it as well. And then I can hide the UV map and export it out again. And I will replace this van texture. Okay, I replace the van texture. Save and replace. Okay, so now I can go back to a Blender and I can go here to image and reload. Okay, so now this has been reloaded with the picture, and as you can see, now I have the photo in here in the Blender model. Okay, so this is how you can bring the paper in, how you can bring the pattern into Blender, yeah. And let me show you another example. Okay, so here's the bus. So I did this completely for the bus. Okay, so here's the bus. So this is the bus with full textures. Okay, actually these are the textures that I have been drawing in Illustrator. Okay, so they are not photos, they are the textures I've been drawing in Illustrator to exactly fit with the parts. With the photos, it can be difficult to match them. Okay, and as you can see, the legs are, the wheels are separate. And now if I select the main body, okay, as you can see here, so this is the texture image where it has all the textures, and then it comes out as a beautiful 3D model. Then again, of course, if you want to have a model in Blender with textures, yeah, if you want to have a 3D model with textures, this is of course the way to go. If you want to export it out and make a paper model, it's actually not really the better choice, because of course this is still a pixel image, right? So if you do the editing in Illustrator, you will have a vector image which can then be scaled to any size and still look good. And this one, if you scale it up too much, it will be pixelated. But of course, you could also export this now out for yeah, to create a model from it. It's just that the quality will not be as good as if you add it in Illustrator. And that's all. Thank you.